What is up, New York? Comic-Con 2018. We are here with SYFY WIRE, and I'm so excited to be sitting down with Kieron Gillen and Stephanie Hans to talk about their new horror comic with a very fun RPG element. What's up, guys?
Hello, good to be here.
Hello.
So tell me all about Die. It's out in December, and I want to hear about the story, and also what is this game that it sort of comes with?
It is basically 2 years ago at San Diego, I was having a conversation with Ray Fawkes and Jamie McKelvie, and we started joking about whatever happened to the 1980s D&D character, you know, that 1980s D&D cartoon, whatever happened to those kids? And like that evening I had a breakthrough and realized, oh no, the rest, an enormous story downloaded, and it made me a crying mess, which is always a good sign. So we decided to do it. Die is basically, in 1991, a group of kids sat down, played an RPG, and they just vanished for like 2 years. They were found 2 years later. They never said where they'd been or when, you know, any of that. And our story's set in 2018. These kids, of course, now are like adults, like 40-somethings, and whatever happened to them back then is coming back. But we kind of describe it as Goth Jumanji, might be a way of putting it.
I am in. That is such a great pitch. And then there is sort of also another component, correct?
Yes, I mean, this is kind of like the tail to the dog, if you will. But yeah, as part of the game, I'm part of the developing the world and all this kind of stuff. I decided to make a whole RPG system for, you know, my own amusement. And the plan is that we'll release it when the first trade comes out. I wanted to release it when the first issue came out, or put it in the back matter. But I kind of realized there's spoilers for issue 5 in the game, so like it can only really be released when people know issue 5. So it's gonna be fun. Like we're play testing it tomorrow. Stephanie has never played it yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Are you so excited?
I'm terrified.
And you were telling me right before we went on that you have a dice that you're making for this, correct?
It was like, I got the biggest D20 we could find, so it's like the size of your fist. And I use that, and like we reference D20s a lot because it's the icon. And I was telling, okay, the 7 next to the 5, we can do this. And of course, Stephanie's looking at her D20.
Yeah, each time he would send it, it was like, yeah, right, okay.
And we realized, no, D20s have completely different numbering. So I took a printout of a D20.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. It's
Who
like,
knew? I did not either.
I researched the history of D20 numbering, and like this dice has multiple numbers on, because the original 1980s D&D red box dice has a D20 organization that no other dice uses ever. It's actually a bit weird, and I've kind of got theories why. So I've got this as a model, and in the end we actually just went to a really basic D20. But still, we've had to research some weird stuff for this comic.
I had no idea that there are different ways to do a D20, and I'm learning so much today, you guys. Now, you guys have worked together before on one of my favorite comics of all time, Wicked and the Divine. You guys have not read that? You go and buy it right now and do yourself a favor, because it is such a fun comic. And you guys also worked on Journey into Mystery, and you met at a Comic-Con, is that true?
We physically met at the Comic-Con. Can I say this? Or, well, basically, Lauren Senkovich, who was the editor of Journey into Mystery, she sent me to look for Kieron. It's like, oh, you have a dinner, like, please come with us. And he looked at me and said, I can't. Like, I'm never gonna understand whatever he's gonna say. Like, I just pretend most of the time. It's like, yeah, you finish this with an email, right?
Yes. So we mainly communicate via Facebook chat.
Yes.
Like I speak quick. Americans have trouble understanding me quite regularly, and Stephanie is very French.
Yeah.
So communication is difficult.
Wow.
But fun and delightful.
So you guys have been working together for a few years now. Do you sort of have a way that you approach the storyboarding and the layout, the splash pages? How does that communication work, besides Facebook chat?
I think mostly you trust me to do whatever you have in mind, more or less. And I trust you to write something that I can understand, right?
It's like we've worked together before, but it's always in kind of like short projects, like one-off issues. Or Angela at Marvel, we did like a few things. But this is by far the biggest thing we've ever had to do. And it's the only thing we've built from scratch together. So we've had to work on methodology almost completely. Like I do my usual enormous world building, and Stephanie does a lot back. I mean, the line I keep on saying is like collaborating with the ocean. Like, you know, and it's tempestuous and exciting and like very powerful.
Do you script out a lot of the panels that you want to see, or do you just sort of, you have your story and you bring it to her and you're like, how do you see this happen?
I think you let me a lot of white space to experiment, right? Like,
I write full scripts, so I describe every single panel in the comic, and often with more detail than I need. But you write for the artist, and so it's like Jamie McKelvie on Wicked Divine. He's all about grids and precision, so that's one sort of script. Well, Stephanie is about mood and atmosphere and power. So like you're writing for something where you know Stephanie's going to really tear it up. So like you know that's what the scripts are like love letters.
Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. Now, you guys, so you met at Comic-Con in 2016. Do you feel that happens a lot, or should it happen more, where creators kind of can collaborate with each other and meet each other, and then projects can be born from that?
I honestly come to the New York City convention half at least to meet the other artists that I met sometimes in other countries, but this is the only occasion I'm sure they will be there, and we go and have drinks, and you know, around a drink you always have a project. Mm-hmm. That's how it usually happens, right?
I think so.
I mean, I haven't done any American cons this year, and me and Jamie, we just had kind of like 2 weeks ago, we went, actually we got serious FOMO. We have not seen any of our friends for a year. We're going to go to American cons, and I said to a friend this morning over breakfast, the con has done exactly what I needed to do, and it rejuvenates my love of comics. Mm-hmm. Like, I see the people, I meet fans, I meet creators, and I'm reminded why I do this very odd business anyway. It's very inspiring.
It's inspiring to us as well, I think. Have you had any really fun moments at this con? Any cosplays that you've seen, or fun panels, or anything like that?
I just bumped into 2 Wicked cosplayers on the way over here, and they didn't know who I was, and so they did freak out, and that was very fun. And there was a Wicked, which is amazing. Like, there's Wicked fans who've done a fanzine, and their fanzine and it's a big, properly printed thing, and it's an in-world document. So it's like fake forum threads and fake news stories. So basically, set in the Wicked universe in the first year, including leading up to like 6 months before the first story. And it's basically the fandom has created a fictional fandom in universe for the comic and printed it. And it's amazing. It's very funny.
That is amazing.
They are constantly inspiring.
That has got to feel so cool, man. Seeing your creations just come to life like that.
I was passing around at breakfast to my friends, and they were like, my creators were, they were jealous. And I was like, my fans are better than your fans.
That's amazing. As a Wicked fan, I agree. I think I'm pretty great. So I want to talk back about Die. When you're approaching this sort of horror story, are you guys big horror fans? Is there anything besides the D&D cartoon that you really got your inspiration from? Anything like that?
I have to say that when I was 14, I actually discovered the library of my father, and he had a giant collection of pulp books, in which was my first Stephen King novel. I think it was Cemetery. And for my 15th birthday, I asked my mother the whole collection of Stephen King / Richard Bachman.
So that's a yes. You are definitely a horror fan.
Yeah.
One of the single biggest, It is the single biggest influence, specifically the adult stuff, not the kids. That's kind of the idea of horrors coming back to you in your adulthood. Yeah, Stephen King's It is definitely in there. I mean, there's a really good book on the history of the RPGs called Playing the World, and Playing the World was incredibly useful. I mean, but this is the book where, Charlotte Bronte's in it. I say that as a very minor thing, but there's a lot of influences, like dark fantasy, literary influences, historical stuff. It's an enormous polyglot of a book, I think.
That's awesome. So horror fans such as myself will read it, and it's a little extra treat for me to be like, oh, that's a deep cut. That's awesome.
I love it, but I'm terrified by it. Like, I cannot watch any Japanese horror movies.
Our letterer, when he was lettering the second issue, he said, this is the most horrible thing I've ever lettered. And he lettered Redlands. Which is an amazing comic and horrific. And it's like, I never thought it was that grim, but apparently it is. There's some really horrible images Stephanie does. And for comics, it's so much about it's not you can't do shocks well, but you can get under people's skin. You can unnerve them, and that's kind of like when we go horror, we want it to linger.
I love horror comics. It's probably the thing that I read the most. Are you guys reading any horror comics currently that you're liking?
Well, I mentioned Redlands. Like, Redlands is my favourite. It's basically 3 witches have basically taken over a town in South America, and they've been running it for basically 20 years. So it's very strong, very aggressive, feminist pop horror comic, and it's so moody. It's really good stuff.
Cool. And you, is there any comic books that you're reading right now that you like?
Unfortunately, I never have time to go to a comic book store. Right now, the only thing I'm reading is like I'm reading for the fourth time my whole collection of Terry Pratchett.
Oh, cool. Well, I gotta check those out because I haven't read either of those, so that's awesome. Before we go, I'm gonna have you guys play Roll for Question, which is one of my favorite games that we've been playing here. Basically, there is a question that corresponds with your 20-sided die, and you are going to roll
Yay!
and answer a question.
Okay.
16.
16.
Looks like the Lotto, right?
You're in a huge Game of Thrones battle. What's your weapon of choice?
Cowardice.
The hide under a rock strategy.
Running away is a very good survival mechanism, I find.
Very, very good. And you?
I'm pretty sure I would hide behind somebody.
We're not a brave creative team.
So we've got a human shield and somebody hiding under a rock. You know what?
I'm pretty sure I'm a sacrificer. I'm sorry, I'm French.
Okay, one more because we've got like a couple seconds left. Who wants to roll? Yeah.
8.
8.
I feel like I'm doing bingo. It's like...
Well, you win. Which radioactive animal would you want to be bitten by to gain their superpowers?
I would like, you know those an otter? Because you know those when otters hold hands and it look very happy?
Cute.
I would like to be that happy in my life once.
Aw.
I know a bar in Tokyo, where you can actually pet them.
Oh. Let's go to Tokyo.
Stephanie, how about you?
I'm pretty sure a panda.
Ooh, radioactive panda?
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
It doesn't sound painful, mostly.
I would love to see you draw that.
Pandemonium, it would be called. You know, that'd be good.
Ooh, there we go. We got your next comic coming up, Pandemonium. Look for it after Die, which comes out in December. Guys, stick around. We got so much fun stuff. Up next, we got Jay Baruchel talks How to Train Your Dragon at 3. Awesome. You guys make sure to hashtag It's a Fan thing so I can creep on you. And thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jennings with SYFY WIRE. If you can't get enough of New York Comic Con, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel for news, interviews, cosplay, and so much more. What are you waiting for?